Photography.
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 Photography is not what it used to be. The internet and the availability of cheap digital cameras means that the number of people snapping, storing and sharing photographs are growing rapidly. Digital cameras and the net are radically changing the way that people think of and use images.
Photography was invented in about 1840, 1850 by William Henry Fox Talbot in the UK and two brothers called the Daguerre brothers in France. And they were the first people that found a way of actually fixing an image. There were lots of ways of taking photographic images, going all the way back to ancient China before that. Artists used to use things like camera obscuras to throw patterns onto canvases or ceramics. But it was in about 1850 that the first photographic image was fixed onto a glass plate. So that's where photography, as we know it today, was born. Portable cameras sort of came into existence in about 1887. And it became sort of popularised in the sort of 20s and 30s by Kodak when they invented the Kodak Brownie camera, which meant that anybody could afford to take photographs, anybody could afford to buy a camera, and Kodak would allow you to send your film off to them. They'd process it for you and send it back. So that made photography sort of a popular hobby for people in general. I think photography has changed a lot in the past 10 years because of the introduction of digital photography. It's gone through phases in its very early days when it was studio based because cameras were very large, lenses were very poor quality, photographic plates were made out of glass, so it's very difficult for photographers to carry this kind of thing around, and you couldn't take fast photographs anyway. The next big thing was portable cameras, which allowed people to take them as part of their family histories, which we've just talked about. But really, in the past 10 years, digital photography has come up, and photography has now changed a lot.
Well, there's been a lot of technological advances in photography, like the digital SLR has just completely overtaken the analogue SLR, and it's got the same, it's like these days there's just so much detail in a photograph. And things like Photoshop are just, they're amazing. Like, that's the way that you can manipulate a photo so much. I think photography is used everywhere, really. Like billboards, posters, even on the underground, like the advertising that you see is photography. Like television, that's aspect of photography, really, but it's moving. And yeah, it's just everywhere you see. So whether you like it or not, you're constantly influenced by photography, and it will always have a place in society to influence.
I don't think analogue photography is going to become obsolete in the foreseeable future, and for about 20 years I've heard people saying it will be because of digital, and it hasn't happened. The reason being that there are artists who always like to work hands-on with materials and who prefer the quality of black and white or just analogue printing. It is becoming harder and harder to resource analogue departments, so at school it's harder and harder for us to find darkroom equipment, chemicals and so on.
Analogue photography, like as a whole, I don't think it will become obsolete. Like the photographers who use it at the moment obviously use it because they feel that it's the better form. When a photographer takes a picture using analogue, like you develop the film yourself and then print it yourself, and then that way there's a certain connection between the photographer and the photograph. But then again, as far as like industry is concerned, like fashion photography, I don't think there is a place for analogue anymore. I think it's all about digital, just purely for convenience. And also these days in magazines where everything is retouched and photoshopped, like digital is the way to go basically from now on, I'd say.